senior officials in the South African government from different levels who are here, leaders of business across the global South, leaders of labor, academia, and civil society, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege to stand before you this morning on this auspicious occasion of the first day of the Manufacturing Indaba, Africa's premier industrial event. This year's gathering takes place under complex global economic and political realities, where the African continent and the entire global South must rethink its place in the geopolitical landscape. Rethinking our place in this landscape also necessitates that we rethink how we are managing our economies and trade relations. It is becoming increasingly evident that the future of our continent lies in our ability to strengthen collaborations. This is the most sustainable way of absorbing the shocks that come with a global economic environment where tariff wars and competing political interests have become the new normal. Beyond the external dynamics at play, we are also finding ourselves having to architect policies and vision for an Africa whose demographic profile is radically changing. Our continent stands at the pivotal moment in its history. Home to the youngest population in the world and endowed with vast natural resources, the continent faces both enormous challenges and immense opportunities. Whilst agriculture and raw material exports have long formed the backbone of African economies, the future lies in a sector that has fueled the rise of every modern economy. The expansion of manufacturing is not merely a desirable goal for the continent. It is an essential foundation upon which Africa's economic transformation, job creation, and long-term prosperity depends. Program Director, manufacturing has been the engine of growth for every nation that has successfully transitioned from poverty to prosperity. From 19th century, Great Britain and Germany, to the 20th century, China, Japan, South Korea, and the Asian tigers, as well as the 21st century, United Arab Emirates and other regions in the Middle East, manufacturing has driven industrialization and technological advancement. The sector's unique ability to absorb large numbers of workers, foster innovation, and build complex value chains make it a critical pillar of sustainable development. For Africa, the reliance on agriculture and the export of unprocessed raw materials such as minerals, oil, and agricultural products has left many countries vulnerable to commodity price swings and external shocks. Furthermore, the continent loses significant economic opportunities by primarily exporting raw materials instead of processing them locally. This practice results in lost jobs, lower revenue, and stifled innovation. By exporting raw materials, African nations miss out on the higher profits generated by value-added products and industries. Consider, for example, that every year the West African nations of Ghana and the Ivory Coast export huge quantities of cocoa beans. The two countries produce 2/3 of the world cocoa, yet earn less than 6% of the $100 billion revenue that the global chocolate industry makes. Or consider that for more than 60 years, Nigeria and Angola have exported crude oil, but continue to have depressed economies characterized by high levels of inequality, poverty, hunger, and unemployment. These realities demonstrate to us that exporting raw materials without adding value reinforces economic dependence on foreign nations that process and manufacture these materials for profit. Thus, manufacturing offers an opportunity to move up the value chain, diversify economies, and reduce dependence on volatile international markets. The continent's demographic dividend could be the most important instrument in defining the future of the manufacturing sector. Africa's population is projected to double by 2050, reaching 2.5 billion people, with the majority being under the age of 25. This demographic dividend could be a blessing or a curse. It will be a blessing if the continent can provide meaningful employment opportunities for its young people, and it will be a curse if youth unemployment leads to widespread disillusionment, instability, and migration crisis. Manufacturing is uniquely placed to provide the scale and diversity of jobs required for Africa's youth. Unlike resource extraction of high-tech sectors that often require advanced training and limited labor, manufacturing can offer employment across a spectrum of skill levels, from low-skilled assembly to high-skilled engineering. Moreover, manufacturing jobs tend to offer higher wages, better job security, and more opportunities for advancement compared to informal and even agricultural work. Furthermore, value addition not only increases export revenues, but also fosters the development of supporting industries such as packaging, transportation, marketing, and financial services. These interlinked sectors create a multiplier effect, generating jobs and boosting incomes across the economy. Economic diversification through manufacturing also insulates countries from external shocks and help build resilience. Here in the Gauteng province, we see the value of our investment in the manufacturing sector. The sector is a key part of the province's economy, the biggest in South Africa, with a contribution of over 33% to GDP. While the sector's overall share of the real economy has declined, it remains one of the largest employers in Gauteng. The metals industry, petroleum and food and beverages industries are major components of manufacturing outputs in Gauteng. Of significance about the manufacturing sector is its resilience and ability to rebound even after crisis. Consider that in the second quarter of 2022, following the COVID-19 global pandemic that devastated the nation economy, and where many sectors shed hundreds of thousands of jobs, With thousands of companies forced to shut down, the manufacturing sector in Gauteng employed well over 500,000 people. This figure represented a significant portion of the province's real economic employment, accounting for 20% of the total. Ladies and gentlemen, manufacturing is a powerful conduit for technology transfer. As African firms engage in manufacturing, they gain access to new machinery, production processes, and management techniques. Partnerships with foreign firms and integration into global value chains further accelerate the transfer of knowledge and skills. Over time, local firms can move from simple assembly to more complex manufacturing, research, and development. This evolution fosters homegrown innovation, enabling Africa to move from being merely a consumer of foreign technologies to a creator of new products and solutions tailored to local needs. One of the biggest challenges that Africa faces, and one which is undoubtedly a concern for many South Africans, is that of migration. But where some might see migration as a problem, when understood within the context of manufacturing potential, the benefits of migration becomes clear. This is because the growth of manufacturing drives urbanization, as workers move from rural areas to cities and within countries in search of jobs. This migration stimulates the development of infrastructure such as roads, ports, electricity, and telecommunications that benefits not only factories but also the wider population. Well-planned urbanization creates hubs of innovation and productivity, spurring the growth of new industries and services. Moreover, manufacturing provides a steady tax base for governments, enabling investment in education, healthcare, and public services. This virtuous cycle of industrial growth, infrastructure development, and improved living standards is the hallmark of modern economic development. At the moment, Africa's share of global manufacturing output remains less than 2%, but the continent's potential is enormous. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which seeks to create a single market of over a billion people, offers an unprecedented opportunity for manufacturers to achieve economies of scale, access new markets, and increase competitiveness. With the right policies, African manufacturers can integrate into global value chains, supplying not only regional markets, but also Europe, Asia, and the Americas. African-made products, ranging from processed foods to consumer electronics, have a place in the global market. Program Director, despite its promise, the development of manufacturing in Africa faces significant hurdles. These include inadequate infrastructure, unreliable energy supplies, limited access to finance, bureaucratic red tape, and skills gaps. Addressing these challenges requires coordinated action by governments, the private sector, and international partners. Key priorities for us must include investing in infrastructure. This is because reliable roads, ports, energy, and digital networks are essential for competitive manufacturing. We must also prioritize improving the business environment. Streamlined regulations and transparent governance attract investment and foster entrepreneurship. Additionally, we must make the building of human capital a key priority. Education and vocational training tailored to industry needs will ensure a skilled and adaptable workforce. Another key priority is for governments and the private sector to facilitate access to finance, expanding credit and investment opportunities for small and medium enterprises will help spur innovation and growth. Various South African banks are represented at this Manufacturing Indaba, and some of them are sponsoring this event. This relationship must be strengthened beyond the Indaba and into supporting the work of manufacturers on the continent, particularly those from historically disadvantaged communities. And undoubtedly, regional integration is one of the most critical priorities if the continent is to realize its manufacturing potential. Strengthening trade ties and harmonizing regulations across borders is crucial. Regional integration significantly boosts manufacturing economic development by expanding markets, fostering specialization, and promoting innovation and efficiency. It allows countries to overcome limitations of smaller domestic markets, creating larger customer bases, and facilitating economies of scale in manufacturing. This integration also encourages specialization within regional value chains, leading to increased efficiency and competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude by restating that Africa is at a crossroad. The choices made today will determine whether the continent fulfills its promise of or falls short of its potential. Manufacturing is not a panacea, but it is the indispensable engine for economic transformation, technological progress, and broad-based prosperity. By embracing industrialization, adding value to its resources, investing in its people, and integrating into the global economy, Africa can chart a course towards a future of hope, dignity, and shared success. The road is challenging, but the rewards for generations to come are profound. On behalf of the Gauteng provincial government, I welcome you all to the Manufacturing Indaba, confident that the deliberations that we will have over the next 2 days will redefine the place of the manufacturing sector in South Africa and the broader continent. Thank you very much.